Microsoft Excel 2003 Basic Features. Any journey of 1,000 miles must begin with a single step. At least that's what the ancient philosophers say. And so we're going to get started with how we start our Microsoft Excel. We always have to get back to the basics, right? And for some of you, this might be very, very basic review. But some of you maybe have never seen Excel. So we definitely want to cover the basic features that we have with Excel. That also includes, by the way, the menu, the toolbars, what we have available there, as well as define a little bit what our columns, our rows, and our cells all mean, and how we can manipulate them and maneuver between them. So it's time to get started with Excel 2003. What's the first thing we do? We start. So we click on the Start menu here. And in my case, since I'm using as an operating system Windows XP, I typically will have my recently accessed applications here in the left-hand side. Here's my Office Excel 2003 that earlier today I popped open to make sure that everything was working hunky-dory, as we like to say. In this case, though, you'll probably go to All Programs if it's the first time you've installed the program, and move over to the Microsoft Office, find it in your applications, and select Microsoft Office Excel 2003. That's going to open up our Excel. And by default, we're going to see certain things on the screen the first time we open it up. Number one, it automatically gives you a brand new, what is known as a workbook. It's titled Book 1. Within that workbook, you are going to have 3 worksheets, or sheets as they call them. Here we have Sheet 1, Sheet 2, and Sheet 3. For you to maybe understand it, a workbook is kind of like having a 3-ring binder. And that can contain multiple sheets of paper, right? Same thing is true here. Your workbook can contain many pages, many different worksheets. In this case, by default, they give you 3. You can add more down here. We're going to show you how to do that. You can name them. You can even color code them. We'll show you that in later editions of this training. Here on the right, though, and for some of you who said, you know, Chris, we've been around for a while. I've used Excel. I'm pretty comfortable with the environment. Great. But let me show you kind of a cool feature here that's pretty new, and that is the task pane. This opens up by default unless you go in and say, look, I don't want the task pane to open whenever I open up Excel. It's one of the options we can do. It's going to start off with the Getting Started. There are other task panes that we can use. If I click on the down arrow here, we'll notice we can have just the Help screen show up. If I click there, now notice it immediately puts in the assistance along with training, communities, downloads. I still have an option to go to Office Online, but this is the Excel Help task pane. These task panes can contain several different things, and some of them are common to most of them, like Microsoft Office Online. If I click the down arrow again, I could also do maybe a research, which we'll show you a little bit later on how we can search through our thesauruses, check our spelling, do a lot of different things. We can even go online and check certain reference books. Then we have Clipboard. If I have multiple items, it used to be you would have a separate maybe clipboard where you could put multiple items that you've copied or cut from other Office products, like maybe you have a document and you have text in Microsoft Word and you want to copy that into Excel. Well, you would have opened up Word, you would have selected and copied that material, hit copy, and then maybe you copied another paragraph and another paragraph, and you had 4 or 5 of them. Well, the neat thing is this clipboard task pane will share all that information, and then you can then move the individual ones. Plus, as we'll see when we get into actually maneuvering and deleting and adding content to cells, you actually, instead of the old days where it just said item number 1, it was an Outlook piece of copy, or it was a Word piece of copy. This one actually tells you a little bit about what it says, so that way you know which one you want to select. So all very cool. And we also have some of the functionality of putting a new workbook together, shared workspace, and document updates. In this case, we'll click on the Getting Started and save it here. You'll notice with the Office Online, if I want to do any search functionality, I can merely type in here. If I wanted to type in copy material, and then I can click on the arrow, it will then go to Microsoft Online, and look, I've got 30 results from Office Online on how to copy a file, move or copy a formula, locate duplicates. I can do all these things right here. And it's almost like a little web browser. Notice I can go home, or I can even move back in my selection. If I click the home button, bada bing, bada boom, here we are back at Microsoft Office Online, and I can start over with whatever I need to do. Now let's take a look at some of the other features that we need to understand if we're going to be maneuvering, inputting, or doing anything in Excel. And that is the title in the menu bars. Up here we can see the title bar, which tells us the application we're working with, as well as the name of the workbook. Now this is important because if you've got 4 or 5 workbooks open at the same time, it's probably important that you're not inputting information into the accounts payable workbook when you really wanted to be putting it into the accounts receivable workbook. That could be a pretty big mistake, and we don't want to do that. Now what we can do, of course, is also control how things operate within our application with what is known as the control menus, or the menu bar. Here we see we have File, Edit, View, Insert, Format, all of the ones that we've seen pretty much since the dawn of Microsoft Office applications. And underneath each one of these menu bars, we can do many different things, like for example the File menu. The File menu is things like creating, opening, saving, maybe printing a workbook. We have the ability even to email it or send a workbook. Under the Edit, we have the ability to do any of the workbook proofing tools. If I click on it, we can see there we have many different things. Copy, pasting, we can find instances of words in the worksheet. Now one thing you probably noticed there was that as I stayed over the Edit bar, I only had at first a few of these, but eventually it says, oh, you want to see everything that's available in this particular menu and for the Edit menu, and so it dropped down. As you continue to work within either Excel or Word or any of these applications, as you use certain like copy and cut and paste more and more often, every time you hit the Edit button, you might only see a few of the available commands that are at your fingertips because it's just trying to control how much you can see and how much you're using or how much space it takes up. In this case, it gives you a complete list. View menu allows you to really change the way that you're looking at the Excel worksheet. You can add some additional toolbars. You can maybe put headers and footers in a workbook. So you have a couple of other options that you see here. On the Insert menu is where we're going to be enhancing our worksheets. Here's where we're going to be adding pictures, columns, worksheets. Maybe we'll add a diagram or a chart, something like that. So that's what the Insert menu is all about. The Format menu is dealing with a lot of the worksheet proofing tools for things like how the cells look, the rows, the columns, the worksheet itself. We can do conditional formatting based upon, certain things that occur. If you have this type of data in there, then we want this type of formatting. Next, we see the Tools menu, which just taking and manipulating and utilizing the data and or the resources that we have. Things like we can protect this worksheet. We can do formula auditing. Throughout this particular training series, you're going to see a lot of these, especially when we get to the advanced in the Excel Expert course. Then we have data itself. How do we organize and display our worksheet data? Then our window, which allows you to create new windows, maybe with the same content. We can navigate between all the workbooks. We can split windows, so that way we can see two different workbooks side by side if we want to. These are all options that we have. Then finally the Help menu, which pretty self-explanatory, and that is the help. Whether it's the Office Assistant, Microsoft Office Online, you can also nowadays check for any updates if they have any patches, detect and repair any issues, and because this is a retail product, we can do activate the product. So if you've maybe purchased a brand new PC and they give you the 60-day trial version, if you want to pay for and activate the product, you could do that from here, just from these menus. Okay, we've looked at our menus, and now it is time to see how we can simplify finding our favorite features in Excel. We do that by utilizing toolbars. If you notice, if I try to find something, oh, hey, I want to be able to perhaps maybe format something. I don't remember, is it sheet, rename a, how do I do the function? Well, good news. I can have a toolbar with a shortcut button or icon here that will allow me to do that. So instead of having to search through all the menus, I can have these right here at my fingertips. If you think about it, if you have a toolbox with drawers that open up and they have all your commonly used tools, well, one drawer might be hammers, and you open up the hammers and it's got all your different type of hammers, and then you got your screwdriver drawer and your ratchet drawer. Same thing here. With our Microsoft Excel, by default, we have two toolbars open. We have the standard toolbar, which includes things like opening up a new workbook. We can print from it, fax, we can do format painting, whatever we want to do. These are all standard tools. We also have what is known as the formatting toolbar. That's this one that's down here, which includes things like changing the font, maybe bolding. We can change how data is shown with currency styles and decimal places and maneuvering the indents, colors, fills, all those things. It's formatting the cells, dealing with what's inside the cells. But believe it or not, we have quite a few more than that. If you click View, or you can even right-click anywhere on the toolbars, but we'll use the menu here. We go to Toolbars, and you notice we've got, there's our standard, there's our formatting, and I think I do believe I've said this earlier, task pane is actually a toolbar as well, but I just call it the task pane because it's something kind of new and interesting. We have all these choices of toolbars that we can add. Now, there are a lot. And I typically don't recommend opening up every single toolbar. You'll barely have any room for your worksheets. However, the ones that you do use more than often, go ahead and choose. Or, if you really want to be bold, take a look down here. Customize. I can create my own toolbar. If I click on Customize, you'll see that it says here are all the toolbars that we have, and I can, in the check marks means that they are open. But I also have the option to add New. So let me go ahead and click New. And I'm going to create a new toolbar for my one of my employees by the name of James. So I say, hey James, you're going to have your own toolbar. You want one? I click OK. Notice James now has a toolbar. Now James is up here and he doesn't have any buttons. He doesn't have any icons. He needs some commands. So I merely click the commands and then choose any of the commands that you see over here. And they're all the categories. Everything that you see up here is now included down here in the different categories. So obviously, James is going to be able to, or wants to be able to open up a new workbook. So I click on it, notice it changes to a plus symbol, and I drop it right there into James's custom toolbar. Maybe we want him to be able to save, and maybe we want him to be able to print. That's always a good one. Let's have him print. There we go. Notice it starts growing as we add more icons here. And then, of course, we want some formatting. We want him to be able to do some cell formatting. So we'll add that particular one. See what we're doing? I can add any of the more commonly used commands that James is going to use simply by coming in and creating a customized toolbar. I click Close. I can then drag James's toolbar, and instead of being unanchored out there in the storms of life, he can now instead be here attached as part of the toolbar. You can detach any toolbar and have it floating. Some people like to do that. I typically, just because of the way I am, I like to have them up here on top. Now you'll notice this is a different toolbar than your, I can then get rid of this one if I wanted to, merely by right-clicking on it and deselecting. You can also maneuver where the toolbars are. They don't have to all be here on top. They can be at the bottom. They can be, as you can see here with my task pane, I have enabled that toolbar and it's over here on the right-hand side. I can move that over here on the left. Maybe you like to have things on the left or on the bottom or on the top. Everything as a functionality can be manipulated so that it makes it easier for you to have good workflow, which is what Office is all about. So we've looked at the menu bar with our file, edit, view, insert, etc. We've seen toolbars and how to create them, even how to manipulate them if I want to move them over to the side or over on to the bottom or to the right, to the left. So we've seen how these all work. What about the main meat and potatoes part, the worksheets themselves? Well, worksheets, we have 3 of them in every workbook by default. Sheet 1, Sheet 2, and Sheet 3. On each one of these sheets, you have 256 columns, which are designated by A, B, C, D, all the way up to where they start changing to AA, BB, and you can do that. In fact, let me show you that. I'll start scrolling over here with the scroll bar, and notice that they just merely increment for all 256 all the way up through, EE and AA, and you can go 256 columns over, and that's how they are specified, is with those letters. You also have on each worksheet over 65,000 rows. I forget the exact number, but it's over 65,000 rows. So between the 65,000 rows and the 256 columns, you have many, many, many what they call cells. Now a cell is merely, let me select one here, C4 or B4, and you'll see that I can go ahead and go B intersects with the row 4. So column B intersects with row 4, thus the cell B4. Now if I want to, I can also go up to the name box, which shows me where I'm at, click in it and say, I want to jump to J21. So I type in J21, and look at that. Instead of having to scroll down and kind of find where it was, it immediately takes me to that particular cell. I can also, if I want to, put in a range of cells that I want to highlight. So I click in here, and I can say something like J21. I'll put a colon, and we'll show you this later on when we talk about range cells. I can then say J21 through J34. When I hit that enter, it's going to highlight all of those cells beginning with J21. That's the active box here, and I notice I've got all J21 through J34. So I can pick a range by utilizing the name box, or if I really want to do this quite simply, I can select maybe D here, and let's say I want to get D all the way from 17 all the way up to 29. I can merely click and drag and select a range of cells as well. Now down below, we can see that right now I've got the 3 sheets. I can also add more sheets, and if I did add more sheets, which we'll show you later on, I can maneuver between these by merely clicking on the Sheet tab control buttons, which allow me, if I have more than the 3 sheets, if I've added maybe 20 sheets, I want to go from sheet 1 all the way over to sheet 20, I can use the control buttons right down here, and they will go all the way down the list of tabs that I have. One other important area that we want to focus on as we finish up our basics is that we have here the formula bar. The formula bar is right here, and if you select anything in here, I can type text, so I can say like hello, I can type in numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I can even put formulas. Once I've finished typing in, I can hit either enter, which will then finish inputting into this cell whatever is on the formula bar, or notice I have a green check to enter, or I can click the red X to cancel whatever I was going to enter. In this case, I'll go ahead and click the green check mark. It now says, all right, sounds good. You now have hello 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is located on F20. How do I know that? Well, look right now, I'm on F19, or I could be over here on E18 just by selecting. When I select on F20, it shows that here's where I'm at, F20 in my name box, and here is the text, the number string, the formula, whatever it is, it's going to be located right here in the formula bar. And as we see, continuing through our training, we might be typing these huge long formulas in the formula bar, and this is where we're going to want to be able to do that. So another area that we need to focus on when we're looking at basic functionality here within Excel. One note that we want to make sure you're aware of is that if you are using this to study for the certification exams, that Microsoft expects you to know how to do things in multiple ways, which is why we show you how the name box works, which is why we show you how the formula bar works, but at the same time you can even select a cell and actually type something in. That works just as well. Here in the beginning, we took a look at some of the basic features, which include things like the task pane and how we open up our worksheets and maybe even create a new workbook. We also took a look at the menu and toolbar. Some of the things will utilize a menu-driven system, drop down the file or the edit menu, or we can even create toolbars or use the standard toolbars to add shortcuts. It was great to learn how to create our own customized toolbar to make our life easier when operating with Excel. Then finally, we took a look at some definitions for the columns, the rows, and the cells, and how they all work together to provide the functionality that Excel needs. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.